Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to make a quick video today. Emphasis on quick, because I feel like I'm always just yapping on and on and on and on and on about stuff, and I just wanted to make a quick video today talking about some of the things that I've been reading, because I've been reading a lot of interesting stuff and it's been a minute since I did a check-in on some of those things. So I'm going to limit myself to 10 minutes. I'm going to start a timer. Let's just see how much I can get done in 10 minutes. Okay, timer started. I started this week off. Well, no, I started this last week. Finished this last week. This is Ivanho, Sir Walter Scott. I've talked about this a couple of times on this channel, like in reference to me, wanting to read it. So I actually did end up reading it last week, and I really liked it. Though I will say that I'm confident, I'm sure that Walter Scott has a novel out there that will be a novel that I absolutely love. This is not that novel. I certainly didn't dislike it, but I also didn't love it. And I know that I'm going to love something that Walter Scott has written. But there's two things kind of holding me back from loving this book. First is that it might just be that it's not quite the book for me, but also he's clearly writing in a mode that I'm not used to. This is written in a different mode. I don't know what words to use, or I can't quite put my finger on it, but it is written in a different mode that is very alien to me. And it's very interesting, but I'm not used to it yet. So might not be the right book, but also I might not be in the right place yet to really, really grab on and love it. So I'm going to keep reading Walter Scott. In fact, I'm more excited to read Walter Scott after I finish this than I was before I started it, because I know kind of what to expect, and I'm hoping that as I continue to read Walter Scott, that mode, what he's trying to do, what he's clearly very practiced at doing, will reveal itself more and become more apparent to me, and I'll appreciate a novel like Ivanhoe or anything else that he's written in the Waverly series or whatnot even more than this. So I liked it. There were times that it felt a little bit like a homework assignment to me, but overall I had a great time reading it, and I'm looking forward to reading more by Walter Scott. The next thing is that I've been reading Henry V by Dan Jones. I really wanted to talk about this because a bunch of people have remarked that they also want to read this on my channel, because I've flashed it on screen a couple of times, and how to say this in a way that won't bum people out. It's not for me. It's not working for me at all. This is a very sort of narrative biography. I knew it was going to be that. Look, Dan Jones is probably not going to be my guy, and I knew that going into it, and I was still going to give it the benefit of the doubt. But Dan Jones I don't think is going to be somebody who writes history in a way that I like to read history. This is a biography that tries very much to tell a story in very sort of narrative, using a lot of narrative or novelistic techniques, and I always find biographies that try and do that kind of falling into an uncanny valley, like this cover here. It's not inventive or creative enough to be a great novel for sure, but it's also not thorough or as robustly cited or anything to really be a great biography. So it falls into this weird sort of uncanny valley in between the two, where it's certainly not great fiction. It doesn't rise nearly to the level of great fiction, but it also doesn't rise nearly to the level of great biography. That's just my opinion. That's just how I've experienced it over the years, and unfortunately, this biography is no different. And I'd love to read that Stephen Montefiore biography of Stalin and compare that to the biography of Stalin that I just got, and which is like much more rigorous, and The Road to Revolution, I think it's called. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked, and I don't want to do that. This is not working for me, and if I were to highlight the differences and what does work for me, I couldn't pick anything better than this biography of Chaucer by Marion Turner, put out by Princeton University Press. I'm reading all of these books because I'm going through books on the the Middle Ages. This is a novel set in the Middle Ages. This is a biography of somebody in the late Middle Ages, and this is a biography of a life lived in the Middle Ages. That is what Chaucer's life is, and that's what it's been consistently used as. It's a great platform to talk about life in the Middle Ages just generally. Talking about Chaucer as, you can see here in the subtitle, Marion Turner even makes reference to it, a European life. This is somebody who lived in the Middle Ages, traveled around Europe. He was not confined to just England. He moved all around Europe on various diplomatic missions. He lived a fascinating and very interesting life, but it's also just a fascinating and amazing window into the Middle Ages. And I think that Marion Turner understood that, and she understood it so well that she devoted the majority of this biography to that end, meaning that there's tons of information and a lot of time spent on Chaucer's childhood, even though the details that we know about Chaucer's childhood could probably fill up a Post-it note. We hardly know anything. There's hardly any information to really go on, and yet she spends pages and pages and pages talking about it. And the reason she does that is because she can talk about what life was like for children in the Middle Ages. And she does a wonderful job of it. She does such a wonderful job of it. So she's talking about life for children in the Middle Ages, not just what Chaucer's childhood was like, but what are children wearing? What kind of toys are they playing with? When they go to school, what are they learning? What are their relationships like with their parents, or how do their parents treat them? All of these things are fascinating and interesting questions, and they are all related to Chaucer's life, whether we have specific documentary details about certain aspects of his childhood or not. And so the world that Chaucer lives in comes alive in a way that, like, the world that Henry V lived in does not, in my opinion, come alive at all in this biography. It is just so... What's funny about it is that it's clear that Dan Jones is writing this book in this way because he doesn't want you to get bored. He doesn't want you to have your eyes glaze over and start thinking about, what you're going to have for dinner or whatnot. He wants you to be hooked as you're reading this. And yet I find this 10 times more boring than I find something like this. I find this to be fascinating and just drenched with, it's saturated, absolutely saturated with information, usable and interesting information that brings not just Chaucer's life to life, but also the world that Chaucer lived in to life. And I just think that's great. I mean, and I think that's what all great biographies do. I mean, what about there's going to be a book about it, even the Zachary Leader book, Elman's Joyce. What about Elman's Joyce, where he makes Trieste and Dublin and all of these places that James Joyce lived in feel so real through that biography, where he's describing not just James Joyce's life, but the spaces that he's inhabiting and how he's relating to those spaces as well. And Marion Turner does such a brilliant job of doing that in this book. And I really do feel like it's just doing ecstatic and enthusiastic somersaults over this biography of Henry V. I mean, here's just one sentence that I marked. It's at the end of chapter 10, which is a fantastic chapter called The Tower. She says, Chaucer's concerns about the problems and insecurities inherent in crafting identity are neatly summed up in the wonderfully ambivalent idea of the forged self, made and counterfeited in the artisanal spaces of the Tower of London. Now, I don't know if that makes any sense out of context, but I'm telling you, in context, that one line is better than anything. It has more meat on its bones than anything you're going to get out of this biography. I guarantee it. Or at least I feel that way. I mean, you might be different. I mean, and this might be a biography for you, but I just feel like putting that opinion out there just in case you're at home and you've picked this up and you're reading this and you don't really read biographies that much and you're like, yeah, it's boring. I think it's boring. Am I crazy? Am I stupid? I think it's boring too. I think that you might actually have a taste for something that is like technically, or at least ostensibly, more dry and academic, but is in fact filled with all of those details and all of that material that actually makes a biography, in my opinion, more interesting than one that is written from top down to be as engaging as possible, but ultimately I think fails at doing that. I mean, let's just compare notes here. In the turbulent aftermath of Gaunt's death and his father's dispossession, Henry has to move out of Lancaster Castle. He and Peter Melbourne have been summoned by King Richard to attend upon him in person. Richard, seldom bolder than when he has just thrown his weight around, has concluded that having snatched the Duchy of Lancaster, he is in a mighty enough position to attend to even greater business. He has been vexed throughout his reign by a desire to impress his majesty upon a traditionally unruly corner of his dominion, Ireland. And yes, I mean, that is boring. I think it's boring. Compared to what you're getting in this, it's not even close. But I just got cut off by my timer. So I'm going to leave it there. I give a hearty recommend to this. I'm not done with it yet, but I'm really enjoying it. This I'm going to try and soldier on, but frankly, I might DNF it. I don't know. Walter Scott's Ivanho was really good. I can't wait to read more of him. And I got started on reading Boethius's Constellation of Philosophy. So that'll be a video for another day. Thank you, BookTube.